Welcome. Today we're going to learn in detail how to create learning paths. Remember that only teachers and administrators can access this feature. First, we will log into the system. In our example, I logged in as an administrator. Then, from the menu on the left, choose the Learning Path option, as shown on the screen. This screen will open and we will click on the Add button as shown now. This will open up two options: create a folder and inside it create the learning paths, or create a learning path without it necessarily being in a folder. Let's start with this second option. When you click on the Learning Path option, a form will open so that we can fill in some important information and details. First, we will enter a name for our learning path, then we will detail a description. We can also describe some objectives for this learning path. Next, and going a little further down, we find in our form the possibility of assigning an estimated time. This lets the user know how long the learning path will take in total. You can also assign a grade and a subject. Remember that in both cases, the options that will appear are those that have already been registered in the LMS settings and are available in our C3 microcloud. Another important detail is that we can define the visibility of this learning path, whether it will be public or private. Explaining these two definitions a little, if I assign this learning path to be public, all users logged into the system will be able to access it. However, in the specific case of the student profile, they will have to be assigned to this learning path via a class in order to be able to view it. Remember that this procedure, how to assign learning paths within a class to students, is shown in detail in the video, How to Create Classes in Your C3 Microcloud. We recommend that you watch it too. Returning to the focus of our explanation of learning path visibility, we can also define it as private. In this case, only the system administrator and the user who created the learning path will have access to it. Once the type of visibility has been set, we can finally assign a thumbnail to the learning path. Simply click on the Choose File button to indicate where on my device this image is saved. After selecting it, click on the Open button and the image will automatically load. Next, just click on the Save button, and now, as you can see on the screen, the structure of my learning path has been created. From now on, let's get to know it and explore it. Note that within this card, we have information on the name of the user who created it, the grade and the subject that were assigned when filling in the form to create the learning path. Also within this card, we can click on the Detail Information button as shown on the screen below. Doing so will open all the information and details of this learning path in the right-hand corner of the page, as follows: name, description, objectives, estimated time, user who created it, grade and subject. In other words, information that was also contained in the Learning Path registration form. But note that not only is this information from the form shown, but also, as you can see, the date and time when this learning path was created, and also the date and time when it was last modified. To close this detailed information after viewing it, it's simple. Just click on the X or the Close button, as you can see on the screen now. This brings the previous screen back to the foreground. Back in our Learning Path card, you can also click on the Edit Information button. Again, the registration form will open, allowing the user to edit any information they wish. Back again, you can finally delete this learning path by clicking on the Delete button as indicated. As with any deletion procedure, before it is actually carried out, a box containing a warning opens so that we can be sure of the procedure we are about to carry out. Now we will click to access our learning path and find out how we can insert content into it. As soon as we click, a screen opens containing a highlighted warning. As we can see on the screen now, informing us that we need to add content to this learning path and that it will be shown exactly in the order in which it is added. However, we will see later in the example that this order can be changed if we wish. Now let's add content. To do this, simply click on the Add button as shown on the screen now. When you do this, a box will open, showing all the content that is contained and available within your C3 microcloud. Adding this content to your learning path is very easy. First, we can scroll through this list of contents until we find the ones we want to add. But if you know the names of the contents you want to add and/or there is a very long list of contents, you can use the search feature. To do this, simply type the initials of the content names into the search field, as in our example. However, you can further refine this search by clicking on the Refine Search button, as shown in the example now. The search filter refinement options will open in the right-hand corner of the screen. Once you've found the content you want to add, you'll be presented with a number of options. Let's understand each of them, starting with the Add button as shown on the screen. By clicking on it, this content will automatically be added to the learning path. Next to it, we have another button, Preview. If we click on it, the content in question will be open so that we can view and analyze it before assigning it to the learning path. To close this view, simply click on the X button, as indicated on the screen, and you will return to the previous screen with a list of all the available content. Finally, we have the Details button. Clicking on this opens a box in the right-hand corner of the screen containing all the details of the content we are analyzing, such as type of content, date and time of creation and last modification, name of the content, user who inserted it, size, grade, subject, and topics. To close the view of this information, simply click on the X button. Having explained each of these buttons, we will now look at adding content to the learning path. To do this, let's go back to explaining the Add button. Simply click on it, as indicated on the screen, and this content will automatically be assigned to the learning path. This procedure can be done as many times as necessary, according to the needs and preferences of the user, teacher, or administrator creating the learning path. As we add content, it will be shown exactly in the order in which it was inserted. Now we come to a very important example, which is the case of extremely vast content, such as Wikipedia. In this case, you don't need to add all your content to the learning path so that the student can access a specific part of it according to the subject to be worked on. However, if you want or need to add the whole of Wikipedia, you can. Just proceed in the same way. Let's do an example to find out how to deal with these cases. We'll click on the Preview button, as shown on the screen now. The content will open, containing all its various pages. We can usually scroll through them and analyze them. If, for example, I want to add this home page to my learning path, I just have to click on this Add button, as shown now. Next to the Add button, there is another one, as indicated on the screen, which allows this page to be opened in a new tab. All I have to do is click on this button, and the page will be shown in a new tab, as you can see. To close it, just click on the X to close this new tab and return to the previous one. I can also maximize the view of this page by making it full screen, as you can see now. And to exit this full screen viewing mode, simply click on the ESC key on your keyboard. There is also a warning on the screen, as you can see, telling you how to exit full screen mode. If you want to close the page view, just click on the X button, as you can notice on the screen now. This will return us to the previous page containing the content options. Returning to the example of the Preview button, let's now build an example of how to add a specific page within the vast content that Wikipedia provides. Remember that in our example, we have created a learning path whose theme is history. So we're going to search for a specific page within the central theme of history within Wikipedia's content. We will do this search in the same way as we would if we were just browsing the page. When we find the specific page within Wikipedia that we would like to add to our learning path, which in the case of our example is a page on African history, we simply click on the Add button, as will be indicated on the screen in the sequence, and it will automatically be assigned to your learning path. You can see that we were able to add the specific page we wanted and not the whole of Wikipedia. Just a reminder that we can do this procedure of inserting pages within a piece of content as many times as we need to. Next, if you have already inserted all the content you want in your learning path, just click on the Close button, as shown on the screen. But if you want to add more content, just repeat the procedure by clicking on the Add button in the top right-hand corner of the screen. Now let's talk about a very important aspect. Look at the content we've added, shown on the screen now. It's that specific page on African history which we searched for within Wikipedia and added to the learning path. It has the general name of Wikipedia. If we think that we can add several pages contained in Wikipedia and that they will all have the same content name, this would be very confusing for the user. The advantage is that you can change the name of all the content you add. This allows for better organization, flexibility, and autonomy for teachers to structure the learning path in a more convenient way. To do this is very simple. Just click on the Edit button as shown on the screen. An edit box will open and you can change the name of this content. Now that we've done that, we can also insert an annotation, a specification, or a detail. Then click on the Save button, as indicated. And that's it. We have now specified the name of the content according to the topic it addresses in a way that makes the most sense to the user. I can also delete this or any other content. Remember that any deletion procedure on your C3 microcloud will trigger an alert box containing a warning so that we can be sure of the procedure we are about to carry out. And we also have these little dots that tell us that these boxes of inserted content are draggable. This means that the order in which the content is shown to users can be changed. To do this, it's very easy. Just select and drag the content to the position you want it to occupy. You can rearrange the order in which the content is shown to the user as many times as necessary. So these dots will indicate that these contents are draggable. Let's demonstrate by dragging this content, which was in 8th position, to the first option. And then we'll demonstrate the example of dragging the content that was in the 8th position to the 2nd position. This reordering of content can continue to be done as many times as you need or want, with all the content, allowing you greater autonomy in the way you organize your learning path, regardless of the order in which the content is inserted. As mentioned earlier, you can insert as much content as you like into the learning path. If they don't fit on the first page, they will automatically be relocated to subsequent pages. To display these pages, simply click on the arrow on the right, as shown on the screen, to advance to the next content. To return to the previous pages, simply click on the left arrow as you can notice. In summary, the right arrow advances to the next pages, and the left arrow returns to the previous pages. Now we can explore the Preview button located in the bottom right-hand corner of the page. This button will allow you to visualize your learning path as if you were the student browsing, exploring all the contents in the order in which they were allocated or reallocated. So on this visualization page, we have a few possibilities to explore. We'll start with the Progress View button for the learning path. Here the user will be able to see the names of all the contents that make up this learning path and exactly which content they are currently working on as shown on the screen. They can also move on to a particular piece of content just by clicking on its name. You will also notice a progress percentage bar. This bar shows how far the user has come along the learning path. When we close this box and return to our page, we can see that next to the Progress View button, we have another button that will show us additional annotations. Clicking on it will display a description of the content that is currently open. If you wish, you can change this description using the Edit Content button. We'll see a demonstration of this shortly. Now, in the bottom left-hand corner of the page, we have a bar that allows us to advance to the next content or return to the previous one. The numbering on this bar lets us know exactly where we are and how far we have progressed along the learning path. In the case of our example, we are currently on the first content of a total of 13 others that are contained within our learning path. I can therefore, as I've already mentioned, move on to the next content or go back to the previous content by clicking on the little arrows on the right or left respectively. Similarly, in the second content, if I click on the Progress View button, notice that it has now changed the highlight and continues to show me exactly where we are at the moment, i.e. in the second content. And here you'll also notice that a check is shown on the current content and/or content that has already been covered. You'll also notice that the percentage bar has also changed its value as we've moved on a bit more. Scrolling through the other content, you'll notice that this Story for Children video that's appearing on the screen isn't showing the additional annotations button, as in the previous examples. This is because this content was not given any details in the description field when it was inserted into the learning path. However, this can be changed. Let's demonstrate this now. First, we will click on the Finish button as indicated. This returns us to the learning path structure. Now we will locate this specific content, which we want to add an annotation to. Next, we will click on the Edit button for the information, as indicated on the screen. And here, below the name of the content, we have a space to include additional annotations. This is where you should enter them. Then click on the Save button. Once again, we will click on the Preview button of our learning path and scroll down until we reach the desired content, which we have just changed. Notice that the Annotation button is now shown, i.e., it has been enabled. When I click on it, exactly the annotation we've just inserted into this content will appear. By scrolling through the learning path and the contents therein, we can end this visualization at any time we wish by clicking on the Finish button. This will take us back to the structure page of our learning path. On this page, we can also edit the settings of this structure. To do this, click on the Edit Settings button as shown on the screen. The form will open again. But note that the Save button is not enabled here. This is because we have made a number of changes to the structure of our learning path. We inserted content and changed the order in which this content would appear to the user. We also edited specific content information and inserted annotations. However, we don't save these changes, so we need to save them. We have two options here. We can either click on the Save button, and by doing so, I will save all the changes made and remain on the page of my learning path, or I can click on the Save and Close button. In this case, I will save all the changes made, but it will exit this page. As we are still going through this example and do not want it to be closed, we will choose the Save option, as indicated on the screen. Once this is done, you will be shown information that these updates to the learning path have been made successfully. Since, in this case, I haven't made any additional updates, you'll notice that the Save and Close buttons are now not enabled, but if I had made any other changes, they would have been enabled. Returning to the Other Learning Paths page, I will click on the arrow in the top left-hand corner of the page, as indicated on the screen. All the existing learning paths within our C3 microcloud will be displayed. But at the beginning, I mentioned that we have two possibilities within the learning path. We can create a learning path, as we have detailed throughout this video, or we could create a folder to organize our learning paths. We will now go through this example. Clicking on the option to create a folder will open a form as shown now. Here we will fill in all the information for our folder, i.e., enter the name, the description, which could be a detailed instruction or something similar. We will also assign a grade and a subject to which the folder relates. In addition, this form, as with the creation of the learning path, also allows you to define the visibility of this folder, i.e., whether it will be public or private. Next, I'll click on Save, and here's the folder I've just created. You'll also get a warning that the folder has been created successfully. Inside this folder, you'll notice that now we're inside the folder we've just created. We can also, via the Add button, create new folder structures or create Assign Learning Paths inside my folder, carrying out the same creation procedure that we've already followed throughout this video.
Critical Links thanks you for your attention.